It's hard to write about trauma in a film or even any other kinds of touchy subject matter. Other shows and movies have tried to tackle the topic with varying results. 13 Reasons Why comes to mind as one of those attempts. It's always important to establish during a story in some way what the direction is. Is your goal to shed light on mental health, or to explore the lives of broken people, or even to explore what a broken relationship can be like? This story, while it does have its moments, doesn't really commit to any of these ideas. Instead, it shows a romantic relationship that came from two people who are both severely broken. However, the way the story is structured is confusing. The romantic relationship is largely unbelievable, and in the end, I'm not exactly sure how to interpret much of it. I do like how Finch's flaws were shown, though everything was a lot simpler than I thought they would be. Before I get into this more discussion-based, scriptless analysis, I'm going to see just what exactly this story has to say about teenage dread with all the bright places. I watched this film in like 900 billion degrees of heat in my room, and I must say, I was more uncomfortable with the film itself than I was with the heat in any time. I gotta give this film one thing if it was on purpose, which I don't think it completely was. It really makes you uncomfortable because I love romance, so I can tell, at least in my mind, when a relationship doesn't fit or doesn't feel right, you know? Like how the main male character Finch interacts with the main female character is just like, I get he's weird, all these things, right? And some of it's cute, endearing, or understandable, but sometimes it's just weird, and then it's played off like it's just, oh, everyone else thinks he's weird. Like the scene where they first kiss, where he randomly stops the car and then gets out and then goes on her side, opens her door, and then unbuckles her belt and then just stares at her, was honestly the creepiest thing ever. I thought the movie was going to turn into a horror film for a moment, because that was really strange. And then she knew, like they both somehow knew that this was the vibe, and I didn't at all, even though they were just like acting romantic or whatever. I still couldn't see it. So that scene and many others, romantically, I didn't believe their relationship, unfortunately. It just wasn't that effective at portraying that they really cared about each other, because obviously it's important to, like, you know, they talk about what they like. Essentially what this relationship was is they trauma bonded, right? I'm assuming was on purpose, that's like the crux of their relationship, was they connected over trauma, but there's nothing else past that. And I know there were jumps in time in this film, and I don't know how long they were off the top of my head, because I don't think they show. Maybe like some outside information could help. But there was no point in time where I believed the relationship until like the very end, before he ends up passing. I think the craziest thing of all when watching this film was that I had no idea what I was supposed to be experiencing, weirdly enough. So when you watch slice of life, drama, romance stories, right, there's usually some kind of crux to the experiences, you know? Like romances have a focus, or the relationship has some kind of like dynamic that's growing as time goes on, or there's a bunch of outside influences that really affect their experience, but none of that really happens. It's very much a contained story about these two people trying to heal. Obviously, I think the most interesting parts had to do with Finch and his character, but unfortunately, I don't really understand his character, because he was abused when he was younger. I get that. And then obviously I don't connect with what he experiences, because I don't experience that type of, I don't know, those kind of episodes myself. I don't deal with it like he does. But I think at one point in the film, he was trying to imply that like he felt like he was his dad. I think when he was talking with his sister at the bar, there was a scene, and you haven't watched it. There's a scene at the bar when he's like in this manic episode near the end of the movie, and he's talking with his sister because the dad and mom aren't around. And he's like, was there any time where dad was happy? Do you remember any good memories? And she's like, I don't know. And if there were any, then they were all gone because how abusive he was. And she's like, why are you asking that? And a bunch of characters are asking him this. Why are you asking this, or why are you like this? Which I don't know if it was supposed to be this way, but that felt very like, I don't know, like inconsiderate. I don't know if that was on purpose, but these people were treating him kind of shitty for him really having a moment and looking for support. But yeah, he asks her, and then he's like talking about, hey, were there any moments where he's good? And she's like, why do you ask that? And his response was something like, if there were moments where he was happy, or if we can know why he was so bad the way he was, then maybe there's some way he can be fixed. I think it was very clear that he was trying to draw parallels between his dad and himself. But what really made it weird was her response to that was, some people are just like that. So now, knowing the end of the film, knowing what happens to him, I don't know if she realized that I think in his mind, she was justifying that he was always going to be screwed up. And then there's the guidance counselor, who, I'll be honest, I've been through school. Everything they described of him, of what he's done in the past, was not that crazy. The two bad things I've heard from him that other people know of was that he threw a chair at somebody one time. He's missed 2 weeks of school, which isn't even that much. You can miss 2 weeks of school. I don't know if there were scenes or moments I missed where they talked about him missing more than that. This is not that crazy. Overall, I don't know if it was on purpose, like I keep saying, because it's hard to tell with this movie, because I don't know what it was trying to do, to be honest. But it kind of feels like everyone else in his life, in Finch's life, was downplaying his mental illness and his trauma and making him feel at fault for it. So it's kind of interesting that the movie ends on a happy note, when my interpretation was that his death was kind of enforced by everyone else around him. You know, like the people who called him a freak and the people that didn't take him seriously, or, you know, all these different things. And there's the main female character, Violet. Couldn't remember her name for a second. Main female character, Violet. She kind of wasn't a character. As the film went on, it really felt like she just, when you write romance, you can't just have a person's whole character be, I'm the female love interest. You can't. It's not interesting. Stories are evolving as time goes on, and certain stories where characters just serve one very specific focus, it's rare for those to be like really good characters. You know, they're mostly there just to fill a slot. And this main female character, Violet here, just fills a slot for me. She's not memorable. She wasn't that interesting. A good film to compare this to, I think, would be The Map of Tiny Perfect Things, which I also did a video on if you want to watch that. That movie was super good. I enjoyed it. If you compare it to that, it deals with its romantic center a lot better than this film does, because they both have a similar experience where trauma is a part of the dynamic, but it's undercut by the romance, so there's like a dichotomy. It's similar, but this one focuses a lot more on the trauma. It's a lot more serious trauma, but I feel like there isn't anything in my mind that it really succeeds on, aside from making me feel uncomfortable. That's the only thing that I really resonated with, was that the entire film, like, this makes me uncomfortable. Like, their relationship made me uncomfortable. I think the only things that were supposed to be uncomfortable was his manic episodes, but just him as a person, I don't know. Like, I did feel bad for him, but that's not enough for the audience to connect with a character. Like, I connected with his manic episode, like his pain, but I guess this just shouldn't have been a romance story, because that's kind of a big part of it, was Violet gets healed through their romance, essentially. So it's a big part of the story, but I don't think it should have been there. It's also interesting that when thinking back to the film, there's a big aspect of no one else really noticed his pain, right? And there was something about they should have done better. I did notice that messaging. It's kind of tough to say anyone could have done anything more, because people were at least Violet was really pushy about what he was going through, and he pushed her away. Obviously, she could have done better things to do so, to help. I don't know. It's kind of hard to blame other characters for like not noticing when that's not really the main problem. The main problem is that they all exacerbated his pain, as far as I'm concerned. Bipolar, that's what it is, where he has the high highs and low lows. I don't know. The more I think about this movie, the more I think that the goal was to shed a light on mental illness and how other people treat it. But this film is way too happy for that messaging. It's way too happy. They don't really take his experience seriously, even though it's on the screen so much. And I think, yeah, that has to be the focus. It has to be like a real life take on how mental illness is treated, at least in some point in our time, maybe still. Because he tries to reach out at least 2 times to 2 different people. He tries to reach out to the counselor, and the counselor literally just like treats him like shit. And which I also, that counselor was so fucking strange. Like, I get counselors in real life are like that, but ugh. And then also to his sister a little bit, but he ends up giving that up. I'm kind of left empty after this film. There's not a lot to say. The relationships weren't very effective. The acting was fine. I think that was good. I think Finch was acted pretty well, but that's really about it. It sheds a light on mental illness and how it's been treated for a long time. That's a plus, I think. Though, I don't know if it's really that effective at showing it, especially with how it ends and how it's like a positive movie in the end. I think it was kind of weird that it focuses on Violet in the end. Honestly, I don't think it should have. I think that was a mistake, because it wasn't about her, and it makes it about her. I don't think she should have been in the film. I think it should have been a solo film about Finch, because she's not important to this story. The only thing we see from her is how she treats him, and in the end, she kind of treats him poorly because of what he's experiencing. But at the same time, he's unable to like communicate it to her because, you know, it's a screwed up experience. But at the same time, she guilts him into him like telling about himself, so it's also screwed up. Aside from the plot can be dissected forever. The writing is fine. I always think it's a bit of a cheap tactic, and I don't want to call it cheap. I just think it's a little bit of a cliche tactic at this point to have romance or character-driven stories have major plot points be quotes from other famous people. It's kind of overdone and just serves as a easy way to put in lines that you think are effective that you didn't have to bring up yourself. Like, there's scenes in this movie where quotes from famous people are brought up for kind of no reason. And this is a very small nitpick, but this will come full circle in a second. Quotes are a big part of this movie, and in the ending, in the ultimate ending, it takes away from the characters just showing how they feel and what they care about. Like, the closest they got to the quotes being an effective narrative device was when Violet and Finch were talking over like a messenger and they were talking through quotes. That was really effective. I like that scene. But every other time, I don't know. I just think this movie should not have been a romance, and it should have been a drama that doesn't involve Violet, because I think Violet was unnecessary and actually weakens the story overall. Every time she's focused on, it's taking away time from what the story's about, I guess. After looking into the plot synopsis, I don't know how I missed this. I guess I did. There was one of the time gaps was noted, and that was at the very end after he's dead. I guess my question is why she never attempted to talk to, I don't know, I need to get over it. The whole point of the movie was that no one realized just how like in pain he was and what he was willing to do. I guess that's part of the movie, because I have hindsight and I saw, like, for example, the audience gets to see the scenes where he's practicing holding his breath. I could tell that was foreshadowing to his death when he was practicing holding his breath because he was trying to like be okay with the feeling of drowning. Honestly, that may have been one of the most effective scenes in the film, to be honest, because after he gets up from holding his breath for so long, he's like smiling and everything, he's like happy about it. There was so much melancholy feeling in that moment, and I could see it like in the performance. It just makes every other character just more annoying. This movie feels like rage bait. The more I'm thinking about it, the more this movie feels like rage bait, because I don't think the writing was particularly amazing, but everything was written in a way to really like grind your gears. So overall, the writing here is okay. It's normal. Like, the characters weren't saying anything crazy. I think the most effective thing was honestly Finch in general. Finch as a character and his writing was a bit better than everybody else. Finch trying to describe his experience without knowing about bipolar or whatever, that was also effective too, because you could feel how like afraid he was and yet how confused he was about the pain he was going through, and he just didn't know what it was, but he sort of knew some things that helped him. The side characters in this movie are really whack. I don't understand anything about them, and I feel like we're supposed to. Like, was the jock who Violet knew her boyfriend? He kind of acted like he was at one point, where they like slept around. I don't know, was she a popular kid at one point? Kind of seems like she was. There was like a subplot in the movie where her old friends were trying to get her to go to parties and she wouldn't. So I'm guessing she was like a party girl. She was popular. She was messing around with that dude, and then her sister's passing changed her, which is shown as a good thing, which you can take that as you will. They just serve no purpose. They're just kind of worthless side characters. The only reason they're there is to agitate Finch and then to just show how she's improving, but I don't really know how she's improving, because again, she's feeling the dread from her sister's passing, and then at the same time they're like, oh, you're improving because you're getting a better friend group than you had before. Like, is it better? I don't know if that's really an appropriate way to look at this, though I do think Finch's friends were better. But even still, Finch's friends, it's fascinating how he's like, I've been friends with him forever, he's just like this. And I get he doesn't know he's bipolar, right? Because I guess that's just not known at this time. I don't know. He gets like one scene as a character. When you have dramas and you have side characters that actually play roles in the story, they don't need to be fully developed, but they have to be more than just exposition machines. They gotta have something. They gotta have a character, like something real to dig into so you can understand how they feel, and their feelings will reflect on everybody else, which unfortunately this film doesn't do very well. So the side characters don't work too well, except to agitate you at times, which I think was the intended feeling. Overall, I'm just kind of disappointed. I was hoping for a bit better. Kind of makes you think of a less offensive 13 Reasons Why. It was okay. If I gave it a number, it's like a 5 or a 6 at best, maybe. There were some fun moments. I just think it's unclear. It's very confusing, but not in a good way. Tell me what what you think in the comments. I'm very curious because I have seen bad reviews, but I don't really get why those bad reviews are there because the comments were very vague. So let me know. Enjoyed. Check out the playlist, more videos like this one. I hope to see you next time.